Almost there. Okay, we are ready.
Awesome, thank you. Welcome to the February 12th, 2024 meeting of the Budget and Governmental Affairs Committee. My name is Nat Kilani and I am the chair of this committee. Tonight, we are joined by Assistant District Manager Brendan Berg. This meeting is called to order at 6:33 p.m. As a reminder, New York state law requires all community board members who are not able to attend the meeting in person to have their cameras on and their first and last names displayed from the time the meeting is called to order until the meeting is adjourned. Members of the public who are attending virtually, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. Members of the public who are here in person, you can raise any question that you have by raising your hand. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. We now need a volunteer to take minutes tonight. If anybody's available to take minutes, please let us know.
I can take minutes.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Loretta, for taking minutes. We will now take attendance by roll call. Brendan will conduct the roll call.
Okay. Committee members, I will call your name. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Jim Collins.
Here.
B. Disman.
Present.
Ned Kalani.
Here.
Ava Marie Lassiter.
Present.
David Lowenstein is not present with us. Steve O.
Present.
Reshma Patel. I don't see. Steve Perez.
Present.
Roberto Ruiz Melendez.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Awesome. Thank you, Brendan. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, please raise your hand. Awesome. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from the December 11th meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office. And thank you, Roberto, for putting those together. If there's no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, please raise your hand.
Sorry, were they distributed? I saw in your email that.
Yeah, they were.
When?
In my, not my reminder email, because the minutes weren't ready yet, but in a subsequent email as a follow-up to the reminder email.
This afternoon sometime? or this
Late
morning?
last week.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was on
I
Friday.
missed it.
I think it was the email where I mentioned that this would be happening this evening too. The fire alarm stuff.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
All right, seeing no objections, the minutes from the December 11th meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB6 website. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. 1, no one may speak until granted the floor. 2, committee members who are here in person, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and I'll identify you so you can speak. Committee members who are unable to attend in person, if you have a question about committee business, you may raise your hand through Zoom and I will identify you so you can speak. All committee members, it is important that only one person speak at a time so that members of the public watching at home can understand what is being said by each committee member. The chat function for committee members present via Zoom should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties that you are having or to state in writing information, like an email address, that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. With that, we'll go into our topics.
This is gonna be an issue.
As long as they're short, I feel like it's not a big deal. The first topic is that discussion of the fiscal year 2025 preliminary budget documents for CB6. So I know they were sent out by the board office, but basically we got like the prelim budget as well as some responses from the different organizations in the government. So right now really it's our chance here to discuss our response to it. So that was sent out, I feel like a while back. I can't remember when we sent it out. We sent it out a few weeks ago, I think, when we got it. So I walked through some of my like thoughts as going through it, and I think, so typically I was looking, I guess you sent me that document that we sent to them today. I hadn't had a chance to review that. Is that typically what we give them, or is that separate?
That's typically what we give them.
Okay. Do you wanna flash that on the screen? I'll do a
Sure.
bit of talking, but like, so just flash the most recent one on the screen.
Okay, just a moment.
So typically we put together this, and I haven't seen this before either, so I guess like, but this is helpful to see of like what Kyle historically had done in terms of just putting together like a response of our thoughts. I think for us here, I think some of these like in like the list, we could coordinate, we should, in theory, we could coordinate with the other committees. So some of them, like I know, like there was the one where basically a lot of them say like, you should coordinate with bring in the agency or further discussion and those types of things. I think for those, it's really not us who do those discussions, it'd be like Transpo committee or whoever. I think some of the other ones are like, if you see like, there's ones where like we had requests for security cameras. And those are really just like, continuing to work with the borough president's office in those groups. So I think those are less. I think one question I had, Brendan, for you while going through, and sorry, I have you doing a lot of things, is just when they say like, they will accommodate or will try to accommodate, are those things where we can push them more to like, or is that kind of like the best response we would get out of that?
Hard to say because one of the issues and like one of the areas where there's room for growth probably is in terms of following up on budget requests, so
Yeah.
it's hard to say whether, like if we were to push certain agencies more, we could get something out of them, or if it's, oh, like we want to do this, but we need an additional source of funding, like try and get some discretionary funding from a council member or something along those lines.
Right, okay. Cause yeah, I know a lot of them, like, I'm sure you guys have, like, a lot of them are like, we'll try to, and I'm like, I don't know what that means and how like real that is. So, and then sorry, on this, I only saw this today when you said it over, but like, so who historically put this together? Was this like from a, like, was it like chair driven, or how did that work?
The letter,
Yeah,
it's basically been a cut and paste over the years, as things were moved up or moved down, and then, new additions have been put in there.
Okay.
The reason I didn't volunteer for minutes is because I was gonna volunteer for this. So I mean, if I can help out with that, that's fine.
yeah, that would be really
But
helpful.
Do you have the one I sent you from 2017? That one I linked?
Yes, I didn't have a chance to look at it too
Okay.
closely, but
Yeah, that had the whole, the way it was traditionally done from 2017.
Got it.
So that might be helpful.
Yeah, I saw B, you have your hand raised?
And then copy copy all the elected officials.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you. So I was going to comment on what Brendan had. I think one of the things being on the committee for a number of years that we really didn't institute was a follow-up. I mean, I think when we say we will try to accommodate or depending on resources, that's what I call a bureaucratic response. And it really would be good if with a period of 3 or 4 months, we go back and ask them where they are in the process. So I think doing a more active role and just not doing a document, getting it there, getting a response, then waiting for next year. I thought that was something that the committee could adopt.
yeah, I think that's right, and I know we have like a topic later on where I think it's a good point for you to get into it there, just like how we want to run the budget outreach process in like a more proactive way versus just like waiting for the responses and being thoughtful there. I think on this though, and great to get your thoughts, B, as well as the rest of the committee, is like, how do you like, do you have any specific like things where you want to like talk about it in this document? I guess like if it is a lot of cut and paste, I think, we have a lot of like the framework there, but I wanted to open up if anybody saw anything specific where you guys wanted to like ask about or like, make sure we bring it up. I think now would be a good time for us to start going through those. I think the real goal here is the comment period closes relatively soon. So the goal would be to sort of agree at this meeting what we want to do, and then we can pass it at full board on Wednesday.
When's the deadline?
so the deadline is Friday for the letter of comment, which is why we had to discuss tonight in spite of fire alarms and a mayoral town hall downtown.
Yeah, while folks are thinking about that, I was looking at these like on my way here. And I think a lot of this is like, just like, I think we can, part of this is like less controversial, where it's like the things where they're like going to do something. I think it's really just like thanking them and like getting that part out of the way. I think there's less meat there that's interesting. I think the ones where it is more worth, sorry, could you actually flip to the responses? I think we can just sit on that now.
The responses to budget requests?
Yeah, like the PDF.
Yes, this,
Yeah, just for like things like
yeah,
the first page of responses.
yeah, and to allude to B's point, there is a lot of bureaucratic speak.
Yeah. So like, I think for these, like, as like, we go through, like, everybody has specific ones, I think it's really hard when it's like the bureaucratic speak to really like tick through it. I think the main thing I would wanna do is just really reiterate that like the top housing issues are important to us. I think just pushing on those, and then we've done that in previous ones as well, but I think like, for me, the letter feels like it's really just reiterating our priorities and less of like specific targeted points, just because I think a lot of these honestly are either bureaucratic no responses or really are more like the domain of certain committees where we have less of anything. One thing I'm doing on that is I'm just gonna get this sent out to them and basically say, if you have any amendments from the floor on Wednesday, just like throw them out. I think generally our committee is probably supportive of those. But that would be the main thing. I think really for me, it's just like thanking them for continuing to like engage with us and then any amendments from the floor, but I'm not sure if you guys any else as you went through.
I would just say maybe there's one capital project and 3 expense projects which pertain to our committee. They're not.
Do you wanna,
So maybe we
yeah,
can
we can
decide
figure those.
among us what we
Yeah.
wanna do with those ones, because the rest are part of the other committee requests.
Yeah,
Or the-
which
I
ones?
think it's number 8 maybe on capital,
Brendan, could you go to 8 on capital?
just look down.
Just a moment.
Sure.
Do. Stop share. So, yeah, this is the committee field. Yeah, there's a,
Reconstruct or upgrade park or amenity.
Oh, no, it was.
maybe it was.
Number
No,
8 on-
it's way, no, it's number 22, I think I saw it in the orange. It was requesting office space for CDC.
Oh, I remember.
Yes.
That was our capital. request
Yeah.
For our committee.
And their response was like, can you put the response? I feel
There
like,
are no city.
yeah, it was kind of a, yeah,
There's no city of,
Yeah.
space available to give us in the
Yeah.
district, so. I mean,
I don't know, what we respond to that.
And that they gave us this office in 2018.
right,
which-
and that we assigned the lease for this, I don't know how long our lease is.
It's a 10-year lease, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It's
10 years.
But,
They mentioned that.
but the issue, like with this space, while it's certainly a lot better than what we had before, which was nothing, it's not large enough to have full board meetings, and it has been difficult, to say the least, to find full board meeting space. That's why we're meeting on Valentine's Day, because we weren't able to find another space for another day.
I'm just wondering, when was the last time we looked, I mean, would we be able to change our lease to some other location, because like. The situation of commercial real estate now is very different than it was in 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't be surprised if you'd be able to get something a lot bigger for
Yep.
probably the same price.
yeah.
Hard to say,
I don't know.
Is this a
that
good
that
guy?
question is more in Jesus's pay grade than mine, since he was the one who spent 3 years trying to get an office. So yeah, that's more of a
Is it a
Jesus
good
question.
guy lease that we could break on no, like, what is it, 90 days, 30 days, no, 30 days notice, I guess most of them are.
That I don't know, once again, that's
Cause we
more,
got this one in 2018 according to the,
yeah,
according to the
that,
note here. So if it's a 10-year lease, we're stuck through 2018, if it's not a good guy.
yeah, once again, it's more of a Jesus question, since
He
he
wants to.
Yeah.
dealt with all this, and he's at the town hall, the mayoral town hall this evening.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to follow up on what you said. Usually the leases don't have a clause that you could break if it's a government lease. So it might be a very valid question. Someone has to look at the lease which I don't think we did before we indicated this capital project. You're dealing with the general services, the equivalency in the city, and they're not going to break leases or assume the dollars for it. So I think we have a little work on this before we comment.
Or at least an email to us.
Can you pull
Yeah,
up,
I think
you
that's
have it
right.
on your files, right? The lease presumably? Space?
I
You do or,
assume,
you do.
I've
or
never
AG
looked.
does.
I've never looked at
Yeah.
it, so I don't
Can
know.
you send it to me? Well, yeah, just ask Jesus.
Yeah, I think,
I'm sure he's got it.
yeah, I think we can ask Jesus about
Yeah,
this broad question and like, he can let it follow up with us on it.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think we paid in advance in the past.
Correct.
You always pay the year in advance.
Yeah.
And the other three items were expense
Yeah.
for their.
Brendan, do you want to flip to the other budget ones?
Yes. Actually, more than 3. There are 5 of them. So
Let's just tick through them then.
there's increased noise inspectors in CD6.
Do you want to scroll down to the response? Sorry.
Yes,
We're on expense now.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
and I should note also that the current, where it says current year response, this is fiscal year 24 as opposed to fiscal year 25. The reason for that is, so there are 2 rounds of responses that we get. One is like the preliminary set of responses, which was what we got recently. And then in the spring sometime, we'll get like a final list of responses from the city. So I figured it might be best to wait to update this until we get the final responses, and they do sometimes change. So,
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just getting it on my phone.
I just wanted to know, the percentage of committee chairs that are responding to this spreadsheet. Are you getting a good response in terms of all that we went through with the last 2 meetings in terms of, capital, and the expenses? Are you getting, once they see this, are you getting a response from the other, committee chairs?
are you talking about during the last 2 months specifically, or?
Right, since the last 2 meetings that we worked on this, then it's what? Emailed also to all of the committee chairs for them to review and go over with their own committees. Is that what happens?
Not exactly. The office emailed Nad, and I'm pretty sure Sandy as well. But one of the things that we were actually discussing, today is also defaulting to sending this to committee chairs as well. Just as a default. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, as a
but-
default, but, part of this is due on Friday. Is that correct? So the ultimate final piece is going to be pushed back. How long do you think? In terms of getting responses from the committee chairs?
Hard to say.
I feel like,
honestly.
yeah, part of the
It
issue.
depends on the chair.
Yeah, I know part of the issue Rashomon has grappled with in the past, even for like the normal budget process, is you send this out and you just don't hear anything at all, and they don't really discuss it at committee. So I think a lot of it is just pushing them, and I think like topic 2, we'll talk about more about how we can push them to be proactive on it, because we just don't get responses a lot of the time, honestly.
Yeah, so some committee chairs are more proactive than
Yeah.
others. Like I've known, like 2 of the more proactive committees most years I find to be the Transportation Committee and the Parks Committee.
Mhm.
Some committees are not as proactive in that realm.
I'm looking at this one request and I don't even know that we're at what we're asking for. This is number 2 on the education on the expense priorities on, education. And they basically kicked it back to us and said, please contact the agency directly and promptly for more information. And this is kind of a generalized statement that, you know, there are homeless students in the New York City public schools, and particular PS 116. This is an issue I've had with these budget requests for years. We make these generalized statements without asking for any degree of specificity as to what we want or need. And, you know, I don't blame the bureaucrats downtown who would answer these things for saying, well, you know, talk to whoever, we need to be, and the committee chairs need to be made aware that they need to be specific and ask for a specific request. This is way too generalized.
Can we go to number 11, since that one is our
Yeah, let's
request?
do that.
It's the investigate noise complaints.
Which also has a please
Yeah,
contact the
please
agency.
contact the agency.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I mean, for right now, I think contact department, but like, I'm thinking like for like the letter that we're gonna put, there's not, I mean, because you haven't contacted them, I don't think there's much we can do there.
So is it incumbent upon you to contact that
I think-
contact person, or how does it work?
Theoretically, yes.
Okay, I can reach out, yeah.
Yeah, theoretically, yes.
Cause historically, when we've done this, what have we done with these, like, has the restaurant reached out, or do you know how it's worked historically?
I'm not sure if there has been much outreach in recent years,
Okay.
which is, as I
Yeah.
said, it's probably,
Let's give it a try. and see what happens.
exactly, no, it's low effort, I can send an email,
But
yeah.
what specific location do we want them to look at? It's another one,
I mean,
you're talking on number 11.
Yeah, it goes through a few of them, so I
Yeah.
feel like it's more, it pinpoints, you know,
Specific.
helipad. Queensboro Bridge, Queenstown, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think we have enough there to contact them and be like, what more information were you going to provide, right? So I think, yeah, I can definitely do that one, that's, yeah, I'll send that email today,
Which agency do they want you to contact?
environmental
Steve.
protection, yeah.
Alright,
and then the number 12, it was the more frequent litter collection. And they say they support it, but due to fiscal constraints, the funding is uncertain,
Yeah,
which is understandable, right? I mean, all the city agencies are facing budget cuts, so
Yeah.
how would they respond to this? In fact, I think they were curtailing it.
yeah,
They're doing the opposite, right? They're just cutting the amount of trash collection.
yeah.
If I
Steve,
may,
yeah, go for it.
a couple of meetings ago, we talked about how some of this is a challenge, like it kind of dovetailing what Jim said. The broad strokes needs to be further defined, and sometimes each agency interprets what a community asks for, like it's not accurate to them. So I think a couple of meetings ago, we talked about, we put some ownership on the respective committees to follow up who is their community liaison for each respective asks. For instance, what agency it's aligned to, and then find out what is the proper way to ask for the request. All right. I know here we're trying to organize this and decipher it and try to push this back, but I think a lot of this should fall on the burden of the committee chairs and the committees that it falls under, and to follow up with them. For example, reach out to Department of Environmental Protection. This noise complaint thing, they just give us a general noise, like have them build a relationship to find how to get the more accurate answer. So this ask is more appropriate, more accurate.
Right, but in this case, this is our committee. This is the budget committee's request. This is not one of the other committees.
the
The
noise.
noise, yes, it is.
All
I
right,
mean,
maybe I picked a bad example, but
that's why we're going through these ones first, because the rest have to be pushed back to the committees. We can't, unless somebody here
Oh, I
has
see.
special knowledge.
and I think in the past we tried to reach out to the respective agencies, and we just never got a response back from these agencies who can talk to us. I think we even entertained about having a couple of these people who do respond to come to our committees.
Yeah, I mean, I think for this one, at least in our committee here, I can reach out and we can see what happens.
Yeah,
Maybe nothing happens, but like, I think that's right for that one. But I think for the other ones, it's really pushing it to them. And then on the litter basket collection. I don't know, like maybe in our like letter, we reiterate this is important, but like, I don't, to your point, I don't know what they're
Yeah,
gonna do about it.
Because we can just say, we appreciate. you
Yeah.
know, That you've considered this as a
Yeah.
priority, you're doing your best with the budget resources that you have.
Yeah,
Just, one of the problems we're gonna have is, I think it's October of this year. They're going to start mandatory composting in the city. And most people in the city, small apartments, family, what have you, you're not gonna have enough space to store the compost, the composted materials. And most buildings don't have space to store composting, which is why I had asked, I think it was 3 times a week, that we do compost collection. And I had actually written a resolution on it, that, I don't know what happened to that afterwards. I think we put it in as budget priorities, but I don't see it there. I just see general trash collection. Cause there's no, I mean, you're gonna end up with vermin and mice and rats and everything else if people have to keep this stuff in their apartments for an entire week.
Yeah, I'm not even sure with the budget cuts if that program is gonna go forward. That's the other thing. So we don't,
City council passed the law. I mean, they're making it mandatory,
but if there's no budget, then nobody.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Objectives and means are two different
Yeah.
things for politicians.
And then number 13 was graffiti program. And they told us we've contacted the wrong agency. It's not EDC.
Yeah,
So
do you know-
we need
so-
to figure out
yeah.
where that should go.
Yeah, so just a clarification, so the last few years, the baton on graffiti issues has passed multiple times. So, EDC used to have this program called Graffiti Free NYC, that was responsible for graffiti removal. And then that got suspended at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic due to budgetary issues. And then NYPD took some role with graffiti removal. And now it's Department of Sanitation that is responsible for graffiti removal. So this particular service or not service request, but this particular budget request probably should be directed at sanitation rather than EDC next go around.
can we do anything about that here? Like, can we put in our letter of comment, like, we'd also like to reiterate this request to the correct department or something?
I don't know about I don't know whether it's something that can be done in the letter of comment itself, but at the bare minimum, definitely next year with the next round of budget
Yeah,
requests.
make a
Yeah.
note
I don't
Yeah,
feel like
make a
Yeah.
note.
so that we don't do it again.
Yeah, I think we'll
Exactly.
check who still has it at that point if Department of Sanitation didn't punt it to somebody else, but.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah, this request in the future should go to sanitation.
yeah.
And did you say there were other ones that were from budget, our committee, or I don't remember seeing any others that were related to our committee. Always.
Yeah, there are a couple of others. There's the more funding for job training programs, number 17, and then the following one, provide more community board staff. So this is the Budget and Governmental Affairs Committee request.
I feel like this is one where
Sounds
like,
like the response is like, we do this.
yeah, I feel like our
What are you
ask is
asking us to
also
do?
not
Yeah.
really clear either
Not
though.
clear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another
Not
one.
clear.
Like I was like, I don't know what we were asked for, and they just were like, yes, we do that. It's like, okay,
What enhanced funding?
yeah,
It sounds like we're just asking them to give more money
yeah,
for this budget line item.
yeah,
But how much, why, you know?
yeah.
He's preaching to the
So-
choir for about 15 years worth.
Yeah, I feel like this is mainly on us next cycle to fix it. I feel like, I'm like, what can we say? It's like, yeah, it's like you answered a
Yeah,
request with also nothing. Like,
Yeah.
I think we need to start these like in October.
I mean, even
Yeah,
earlier, I
community
like,
chairs.
I'll talk about it too, but I kind of want to start it before the summer.
Yeah.
So that we start it and then we'll get into it in a second, but like, I think there's a way to be more proactive about this than we've been in the past.
100%. Absolutely.
And then can you go to 18?
Yes. The community board staff one.
Cause I'll just not updated, but like our explanation.
In fiscal year, yeah, this is
Yeah.
5 years ago. Yeah, I mean, given what the city is facing, it's not likely that they're gonna be increasing funding for community boards
Yeah.
at this time. So. We
Yeah, I mean, and yeah.
appreciate their response.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this goes in like the, yeah, we appreciate you guys continuing to support community boards and stuff, but there's not much else to say, I think.
I just had a question.
Yeah.
Brendan had said that this is due on Friday. You said this is due on Friday, and you're sending it where on Friday?
So we are sending it, if I remember correctly, to OMB, but let me double check where we've sent the last couple of, so it's addressed to the mayor. But I would need to double check, but I think officially it's Office of Management and Budget.
And then they'll send back a response, is that right? For
Yeah.
what we're sending? Well, we had said 2 meetings ago that we wanted to have all of the committee chairs attend one of our meetings in April. Is that something, is it that you or Reshma would be attending the executive? Not the full board meeting, but there's an executive meeting where all of the chairs are at that meeting, is that correct? Is there any way that invitation can be extended at the next executive meeting so that they come in April and at least we can at that point discuss what was sent back from the city, but they will have more input, because it seems like we're going around in a circle where we're doing everything and I don't know what they're doing in these other committees. If they can't, to me, the end point is to send us what the recommendations are, and it doesn't seem like they're doing that. We're doing everything by ourselves. So I wanted to know, how can we facilitate this meeting in April, once you get the response back from the city, and then we have something to constructively show them in April when they come to our meeting?
Yeah,
What can we do?
yeah, and B, let me get you in a second, I'll just run to this, like, I was thinking about it somewhat similarly, I think it's inviting them to our meeting and just getting their thoughts. But I think it's like, maybe it's like the June meeting, it's also like me probably going out to each of the committees and just having like a 10-minute thing in each of their meetings and just talking to the entire committee. Because I feel like a lot of the issue that I've found is like, when I was just a member, you don't see what's going on at the chair level. So there's an element of like going there and saying, hey, to all committee members, we're gonna send this out to the entire full board. You should review your committee's work and then get back to us. And the idea there is like, chairs are busy, chairs can like, like not necessarily review it. But if we get people on each committee being like, okay, here's the budget process, here's the way to ensure that your topics are like, getting responded to thoughtfully, we're just gonna increase engagement. So I think that's sort of how I was thinking about it versus necessarily saying, let all of the chairs come here. But I'm gonna bring that up in exec next time, because we do have like exec with all the chairs,
Mhm.
and basically just say, hey, this is what I wanna do, fit me in like your next 3 meetings before the summer.
To me, that would not be that shouldn't have to be the labor of you, to me, to go to each individual committee.
Yeah,
To me, that's the responsibility of the chair so that they could come here first, then they should be the ones that are instructing the members of their committee. That's just the way I see it. That's
Yeah.
a lot of work for you to have to do. What is that, like 7 different presentations?
Yeah. I agree with you, and like we can talk about it, and that's kind of the second topic, so I think we can come back to it in a second, but yeah, I think that's right. And B, I saw you had a hand raised.
Yeah, so I want to follow up on what Jim said and even the things that we did. We're really involved in making budget requests. And I really feel that the committee chairs should be appointing at least someone on their committee that's responsible for working with the committee. And we should have some criteria. For example, even the stuff that we did that was very general, you're going to get that bureaucratic response. They're not interpreted. And we spoke about it the last, I guess, before we did this group, that some of these are so old, people don't know what they're about. We should do less than more and be very specific. I agree with Jim. If we can't explain specifically what we want, it shouldn't go in. If the committee can't explain it, it shouldn't go in. These general statements don't work.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and let's hold that for the second topic. I think there's a whole topic we could have here of like how we wanna do the budget process better, I wanna get to that. But just cause I know this is due Friday, I just wanna see like, is there anything else that we want in this committee to include in that like letter right now? And I know that this letter is not gonna be like the perfect letter, but I think let's just get in a letter out now, and then we'll talk about how to make it letters better in the future, because I agree with a lot of the comments that are coming up here.
I will just say I did touch base with Matt, the chair of the Public Safety Committee, which
Yeah.
I also sit on, and sent him all of this and said, is there anything you would like to change? And there's nothing in the public safety ones
Okay,
that where he's not sure if the cameras have been installed yet.
Right.
We can follow up with the precinct.
yeah,
There's not really anything to say about that.
okay,
Just I'm sorry,
no, go for it.
on reading that first paragraph, I don't see any mention of the affordable housing amounts that were in the governor's budget or in the city budget. Do you see it? I don't see it. The governor passed, I forget how much it was, 150 million, 150. It's supposed to be a significant amount for affordable housing in the state budget.
Just to note,
You mean last year, or this is last year's?
yeah, this is last year's letter.
Okay. Well, oh, so I'm sorry. I thought this was, never mind.
No, so we haven't drafted this year's
Oh,
yet.
right, okay. Yeah, but she did have a significant number, a significant budget amount. In this cycle, and I thought that a good portion of it was dedicated to New York City. Let me just find it here.
Jim, did you wanna take Penn on like I know you mentioned
Take the
asking,
point on that?
yeah, I know you mentioned talking about the cutting and pasting.
After we dive.
Yeah.
Yeah, just send me this if you would.
Yeah.
And do you have it in text? I don't want a PDF.
I don't know if
Cause it
we
is
have
cut
it,
and paste.
I think we have it in text, but if we
Yeah.
don't, I can very easily convert this PDF
Yeah,
into
if you
a
would.
Word document.
Yeah.
Let's see, and I wanna find that document.
But yeah, I do wanna spend some time on like topic 2, and I don't want this to go too long, but I think like for this, I think, and like, let me know what you guys think, I think really it's just honestly gonna be this year more of a cut and paste job, and like just getting a letter forward just so we say something, and then I think when we get to topic 2, we can talk about how to be more thoughtful and clean up the budget requests list, because I feel like when I think about what this committee does, there's like the voting redistricting stuff, which is important and periodic, but there's the budget thing, which since I've been on the board, which has been like a year and a half, like we don't really have a cadence for how that works. So I think there's like an opportunity now ahead of like the whole thing to really make that improved. Do we need to vote on the vibes, I guess, we've discussed?
$500 million investment, so she's put $500 million into it.
What I would say is not necessarily.
Okay,
The reason I say that is if like, if the letter of comment is just a reiteration of what's already board policy,
Yeah,
then, you know, a resolution isn't needed, and like, kind of related to that, in previous years, or my thought for a but also kind of related to that, in previous years, a resolution hasn't been passed
Yeah.
on these letters of comment. So like, there wasn't a resolution passed on it in 2023. I don't remember a resolution being passed on it in 2022. So,
like, did we vote on this letter or comment, or how did it? Cause I feel like I don't remember in budget committee last year discussing this. I don't know if Kyle just wrote it.
I don't remember. B, do you remember if we voted the letter? I don't think we did. I don't recollect.
Now, we
voting.
have generally not been involved in voting the letter. We are involved in presenting, you know, the budget to the committee before it goes. And that is, we take as policy. We're not changing anything in policy. The committee agreed on, well, the full board agreed on all this. So I
Yeah.
would just say in a report from the committee, you would comment that we're updating it and it's an existing policy of the board.
Okay, that makes sense. So I think we have a game plan there, and then Jim, thank you for,
Yeah.
we'll get you like the Word doc of that so you can edit it.
Brendan, I just sent you, the schedule showing the highlights of the governor's budget. So
thank you.
we can, if you would distribute that among the committee, that would be good.
I'll make a note of that.
All right, I think with that, we can move on to that second topic, which we've kind of already started on. So yeah, I think there's like different ways to go around this, but yeah, my whole thing, and part of it was coming out of this, but just also generally being on this, is like making this more methodical, because we're kind of very reactive here and not proactive, both to the government, but also to the other committees. And I think, yeah, like, I think there's definitely like a way, whether it's the committee leader, like committee chairs coming here, or one of us going to those committees. I think if we go, it's not gonna be the biggest time thing in the world, because I would just dial in for like that 10-minute portion and then drop. But I think there is an element of like a balance of how do we get the individual committee members involved? And that's what I was trying to think about, but open to folks' ideas. I think there's a lot to do here, but my whole thing was thinking about a way of like in the April, May, or June meetings, really going, addressing the committees, and then, you know, getting it top of mind then. And then really coming back, when we come back in September, just being in front of it in day one, basically being like, let's see what you get. There's an element of like carrot or stick type thing of like, do we say if you don't give us updated requests, we drop your request, something like that? I don't think we want to necessarily drop things, but I'm trying to think of, I'm open to ideas here of like, how do we enforce it in a more strict way so we actually do get responses?
Well, actually, I have a question.
Yeah.
About the whole process, because as I think about what's happening here, one thing occurs to me, and that is, so the executive committee already consists of a representative from each
Yeah.
of this, however many committees we have.
Yeah,
Why isn't the executive committee producing this budget request?
yeah,
Because presumably they already
Yeah.
have all the knowledge, rather than us
it's
like.
like all the chairs, you're
trying
right,
to
like,
pretend
yeah,
like we're
yeah,
coordinating something when they could just paste it together.
yeah,
As I told our prior chair, I think we need an enforcer.
And do other
And I think-
others, community boards, how do they produce that? Is it their executive committee that puts it together, or do they farm it out to some other committee, which is a kind of a hodgepodge of
All
different people?
of the
who are-
committee chairs are, all of the committee chairs are aware of this. They all are aware that they have this obligation. We have to enforce them doing it. And, you know, if that comes from the board chair saying, you know, this is part of your job as chair, and if you can't do it, maybe we'll find somebody that can. You know?
Because that's part of the disconnect,
Yeah.
right? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
They are responsible for what their priorities are, the committee. We're trying to translate it somehow or get them to give it to us.
yeah.
But if they just produce it themselves.
No, you're right, and like part of, I know,
More
like,
natural.
Yeah.
And it might actually reflect their real priorities
yeah.
rather than.
Yeah,
And I know part of the thinking around this committee is like every person here is on another, like one committee, but it also is hard because we're not like the chairs of those committees, so there's that disconnect. And then B, I see you have your hand raised.
So I think I'd be more hard-nosed than you. If, no, because I've seen this over the years. And you ask the committee chairs for for their budget items, and they don't even know what some of the items are. And I think you did have transportation and parks, which are pretty active, so they've given most of it. But I really think that, and you'd have to talk to Sandy, and there would have to be agreement that there has to be more involvement of the chairs, and they have to give specificity. And if they're not responding, and I know that was one of the problems that we had, that people didn't respond, then their requests, we're not just repeating their requests. I think until you do that, people are not going to take this seriously. And unfortunately, I think for a great many committee chairs, they don't get involved in it.
Yeah, because I mean, I think, when you look at the requests and a lot of them are outdated or just don't make sense, I think there is an element of like, and maybe it's like this year is a tough year where we basically tell them, hey, we're gonna like drop it, just give us a fresh, clean slate. And then after, like years after, like it's easier because it's hopefully thoughtfully updating them, not just leaving them. But I think B, your point is right? It's like you need some way to do it. And I can bring it up on exec. I know Reshma in the past had brought it up on exec, but it doesn't really happen unless there's some way to like enforce it. Any other thoughts on like best approach here?
No,
Yeah,
same as before.
Yeah.
I think
Well-
we need an enforcer.
yeah,
I mean, one part is the enforcement, but
Yeah.
like. I would say we could give, if we're gonna operate in the same way we're doing it, which is we're responsible for it. If it's the
Yeah.
executive committee, we're gonna try to get from them what we need to produce it.
yeah,
Then I would say we could give more guidance to the committees about what it is exactly. We can't just say, give us something concrete.
yeah,
That is not enough guidance. So I would suggest that we come up with kind of a framework
yeah,
that we can give them that say, these are the kinds of things you should be thinking about as you put together the priority for your committee.
yeah,
And so once we give them, it's kind of like a worksheet
yeah,
that helps them, okay, this is what you mean, rather than just say, give us something concrete.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
not helpful to the
Give them,
committee chair.
give them
Yeah.
a list from the database of what is on their particular committee, and then let them sort through it.
But I would say like, let's think about how, because we have to prioritize
With
the
them.
projects, like how should we think about prioritizing project, these kinds of projects for the committee and give them some kinds of criteria
yeah,
so that okay, this is what you mean by this, okay.
yeah. I don't know what criteria we would use, but like, I think what we could do is we can like all think about that and then come back next meeting with like how we like think about it. I think what we can all do is just look at look at one, like the current requests, two, what kind of requests actually like are there, like how we think what's an important request, but also like what actually gets a meaningful response. Like a lot of these things like the street projects where they're like, oh, you should just put in a request in the portal. I don't think we need to put those on the list because it doesn't really do much for us. So I think what we can do is they can have this same topic next meeting, and we can talk about like what that worksheet looks like. And if we get that worksheet done by March, then when we go and like, I'll bring it up next exec too, in my like committee report. And then I think we can basically start to disseminate that in April or like at the latest, and then we can basically go from there.
So as you all were talking, I was curious as to whether the city itself has any resources as to what makes a budget request strong. And I
Yeah.
literally just now found this slideshow from the Department of City Planning, giving different tips on how to strengthen budget request submissions. So I can send it around to the committee. I don't know if that might act as a framework for a worksheet that committee members are talking about, but that might be a good place to start because it's the city itself saying what they think are good budget requests to give to them.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. So I think it'd be good to send out to this committee. I think we can all review it ahead of next meeting and then come back with like our committee's view on like what that worksheet would look like.
And once we approve it, you will be presenting it at the executive meeting,
Yeah, I think that like,
and that would be, when do you think? You said what?
so.
Between April and June, did you say?
Well, so we have, I think if we get it out next meeting, so we have our March budget meeting, I don't know what day it is. And then I just do it at the next exec, which I think is April exec.
next item on the.
Yeah, is there any other thoughts on game plan? Otherwise, we can do that. So yeah, if you send that out and then we'll discuss it again next meeting.
Yep, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you. And then, yeah, the last one is just this update on redistricting in New York City, or New York State, sorry. I know this was like a holdover from like Reshma's time, but I was like looking and I think we can like, I don't know, there's not much to do here. I think looking at what happened, it was in December when the court struck down the map. And they're like working through the Independent Redistricting Commission. The map is due, I think, February 28th. The new map was come out then. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if anybody else has seen it, but I think for us, really the thing will be just to monitor when that map comes out, our perspectives on that map, if it deals with our district in like the appropriate way. Like I know people who've been here on this committee longer have seen when they like chop up our district in different ways that doesn't make sense. Like sometimes they'll loop us in with part of Queens or something like that. So I think the main thing for us is just to monitor what happens and then probably next meeting, because the map should be out by then, we can monitor it and see if there's a resolution we want to pass. But I'll get that sent out to this committee once I do see it, or if any of you do see it, just send it to Brendan and we can distribute it to the whole committee. So I think that's the best way for us to see. And then if we do want to write a resolution, we can move quickly in March and do that.
Do they actually request or solicit feedback on the maps? Because my understanding is that there's an independent commission that is supposed to draw the map.
So
So why would a community board have any say as to how that map was drawn?
historically, we've commented on maps. I don't know what.
So sometimes there have been situations where the New York State Independent Redistricting Commission has had their maps open to public comment. So what's happened in the past is that there have been certain situations where the redistricting commission had public comment open and we wrote resolutions that acted as our public comment towards the redistricting commission.
Yeah,
Oh,
But we're not sure they are opening that.
yeah. I mean, if there is an,
Input.
what do you do?
There's often some, well, like the most recently, we had an instance where the people up in Sutton Place objected very much to their being carved up with a district in Queens. And it tends to be more, our actions tend to be driven more by objections of local communities or community groups. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, I know that, you're right. If there's no public comment period, then like whatever, but I
Also,
think
it
it's,
seems to defeat the purpose of an independent commission fairly drawing to have them say, well, the citizens can decide if they like it or not.
yeah.
I'm in a Senate district that's now half in Queens and half in Manhattan, so.
Yeah, then this whole process is wonky.
Strange.
So like, yeah, like I don't think it's like
If I
great
had my
process.
way, everything would be limited to the community board. This would be the council district. This would be,
But yeah, I mean, let's see what happens. But yeah, if there's no thing, we'll
Yeah.
see it and we'll just be like, yes, this is now what it is. I think, but yeah, it's just mainly for us to monitor and what's going on. But like, yeah, I just remember like, right when I joined, we were voting on one and like it changed. I don't know if our voice made a difference, but we did comment on it and think it did change. So I think it's worth us monitoring. And if there is a public thing, I'll put it on the agenda for next meeting. But if not,
Yeah.
kind of is what it is. Not really, like there,
Old business?
Yeah, I was gonna waive the chair's report, like, I think, but the only thing I wanted to talk about was that budget process stuff, so let's just keep on top of it. If you have any ideas, just feel free to send them out, we can discuss them more next meeting too. But I think this is like our opportunity to like improve the process in a meaningful way, I know. We've always been reactive, so being proactive here, just making it a cleaner like sheet, will also just make it easier for us to manage every year instead of sort of jamming it in October.
On old business, I had raised it with Reshma, and I spoke with you about it
Yeah.
at full board. The issue of, our weighing in on congestion pricing
Yeah,
and how much it's going to affect, residents of the congestion pricing district, which is basically the entire community board district, because as I said to Reshma, we're going to lose, assuming that congestion pricing works as promised. A lot of the garages that are partially support the revenues of operating buildings both leases, condos and co-ops, will be severely affected. I mean, I know a few buildings where the parking lease is well into the middle six figures. So those tenants will have to pay higher rent. It affects the building staffs who largely live in transit deserts and have to be at their job by 7 o'clock.
Yeah. No, I
It's
think it
also
is an important
dangerous.
topic and like, but I think it is like, I was talking to like the transpo guys and I know like we've talked
I
about.
know,
like,
it's not a transportation
it is,
issue.
I feel like fundamentally it has to go to one committee, because if you have two voices, what ends up happening is it just makes it more confusing, where how does the government know who is like the lead on this? And I know like Transpo has had people come in to talk about it there. And although like I can see how you could argue it falls within governmental affairs, I think there's like, and I talked to Sandy about this too, there's a real interest in like having one committee be the voice of certain topics.
Right?
And for this one, it is the Transpo committee.
Okay, I disagree very
They
strongly.
Did you attend the transportation meeting?
No.
They had a 2-hour conversation about this very topic.
Yeah.
And
About
there's
the,
a-
about the cost
Yeah,
that will
Yeah.
be incurred by
Yes.
the locals?
and there's
Yeah.
a resolution.
When
that
was it?
Just,
Last
gonna-
Monday.
it was Monday.
When we,
It was last
really,
Monday.
Yeah.
when
No,
we
we-
spoke
yeah,
at
and then
board, we
Sandy-
were gonna do a
yes.
joint committee meeting.
They didn't
What
want
happened?
that, they didn't wanna do that,
Who
because
didn't?
like Sandy and then the chair of Transpo. Because they were like, we have this committee, like, we have, like, we are, like, the argument they, which I think is like fair, is like, they're the specialists in this is like what they do. And then adding governmental affairs and like, they just didn't agree was our mandate, and I'm like, I don't think we need to overlap with them. It's like, there's one committee and it's
What
their
did they-
mandate.
I'm
Sorry, let me
curious.
let
I'm
B
gonna have to
go.
watch the video.
Yeah, let me
It's
let,
2 hours, yeah.
Yeah, B's a member of the
Yeah, yeah.
transportation committee.
yeah. B,
So let me just comment, it was a really great discussion for 2 hours or a little longer on transportation. Members of the public did comment, residents did comment. All of the exceptions were reviewed. And so I thought it was a full airing of it. And there was a real question as to whether resolution goes forward or we stay with the resolution that we had. But I actually thought that the public was engaged, and that was really also the idea, not just ourselves, but to get the public more engaged in the issues. So Jim, it was a full discussion. I'm sorry you weren't there, because I think you would have
Frankly, I feel like I'm sandbag. Be honest, I really do, because this was an issue that I had raised a number of times.
Yeah.
With Reshma and, you know, with
Yeah.
you as well. And it is a concern. There's a lot of people that are going to be adversely affected. And will end up, actually, we will end up, people who live in the district will probably suffer these costs more so than the people who are commuting into the city.
That was
Because-
certainly raised by the residents that spoke. They had very specific examples. And so I think, I felt that we at least had given it an airing where people could give their comments. And it was really a worthwhile discussion.
yeah,
I'll have to view that, because I'm very disappointed I wasn't informed, man.
yeah, no, I'm sorry, we didn't, like, I know, like, the agendas are sent out weekly by.
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
I know, but, you
Yeah.
know, if I
Read your
check
email.
everybody's agenda,
Read the agenda of the emails.
Yeah.
every agenda of every building and meeting, is, you know.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched parts of it, and I think it was like a good discussion. I think part of what came out of that was like, it was good because the public was there, so it wasn't just the board talking, so I think that was definitely a benefit of doing it there, where it was clearly like congestion is a transpo issue, so the public went to go to that one meeting, so I think it was effective, and I think like regardless of the position we can take on it, I think it was good to have that dialogue there.
It's okay. I've got an op-ed on it already, so it will, that I ghost wrote, so it will appear elsewhere.
Awesome. Any other old or new business? All right, seeing none, let's ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Awesome, thank you. So we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:32 PM.
Thank you.
I really should have been informed.
Thank you for the efficiency.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.